Chair Sulla has indicated that he's going to be a little bit late today. He does indicate that he will be here. He has asked me to go ahead and begin the meeting, so I'd ask you all to rise and follow me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Yeah. We look for a second and then corrections.
Yeah, second.
Are there corrections?
Yes. Could we pull item 8 under action items for tonight? Pull it over.
Is that acceptable to the mover?
Fine with me.
Okay. Thank you. Any other corrections? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 2, public comment. This is the opportunity for the public to address the board on issues that are not necessarily on the agenda. And I see that Mr. Richard Brown has indicated he'd like to speak under public comment. Mr. Brown, if you come up to the chair, please. Thank you.
Reviewed my rate increase just recently. It's pretty high. We've been out of town, we come back to town and you see that it's a huge bill. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no shortage of water. How could they justify this rate increase about almost 15% and another 6% projected in the future? And what I've been informed is we have more than one source of filtration and treatment on the same river or same area. It appears that the duplication of effort and management and the constraints that each section has, each water bureau has, my suggestion would be to see if you'd entertain a motion to consolidate and have somebody negotiate through the Clackamas County Commissioners, because of some of the scandal that's happened in this bureau, not pointing the finger at anybody current. My belief, there is a solution, and it's one that would be satisfactory to everybody in the room. I think the consolidation is necessary. I had personal tragedy this last fall, and being an ex-serviceman, I was kind of looking forward to seeing McCord again, but under the circumstances of the loss of a Green Beret that was my son-in-law got killed in Afghanistan. When I went up there, I got to talk with some of the commanders, and they had consolidated so many of their efforts, their military efforts, their logistics, their warehousing, their storages, their use of fuel, under what they call now a joint base. It's not one base anymore. So I see so much duplication here of processing, of distribution, of categorizing and analyzing the water so it's fit for consumption. I think it's time that we use some of the already existing methods of consolidation, of relieving us of this duplication. I think we can cut our rate down to where most people, like on fixed incomes, was a lot of people in this area in the near future, because we have baby boomers getting ready to retire. They're going to have a hard time with the additional fees that are coming from the garbage, postage rates going up. Even people that work under union contracts have to pay part of their health care anymore. So it's not that we're in an economic situation where we continue to accept small percentages or even marginal increases with the continued combining of these rate increases across the board. Our cost of living, our quality of living is going down. When we had a neighborhood summer party at the Fieldstone neighborhood, we were all talking about the increases of everything. And we're fortunate we live in a good neighborhood. But combined, it's just a little bit too much. Most people have modest incomes around here. We're not a great manufacturing location like they are back east, and even those people are suffering now. But until the economy improves, I think we should look for ways of consolidating all these duplications of effort and using the best expertise that we now exist. This room here, right here, could be the people that spearhead the change. If there isn't an oversight, then try to create something before the voters, to where the voters can have more knowledge of this. I'm glad you've got this on the website. I'm happy that people have more awareness, but just informing myself over this, I had to choose between being angry or coming and speaking civil. And I think the best thing to do is give more people as you can. I'm glad David's trying to help quite a bit. I don't know everybody here on the board. I've seen some of your faces before. But I believe, just like you pledged to the flag, you pledged to the people of this county. And I thank you for that. Your service is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Mr. Brown, would you mind leaving your phone number with Adora, our staff member, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak under public comment at this point? All right, moving on. Item number 3 is a report from executive session held on August 26, 2013. I'll make that report. The board convened an executive session on that date and had our attorney online, and we received counsel on a variety of subjects. Those subjects were the discussion regarding the commissioner's conduct and the release of closed session information, a general discussion on a possible code of conduct for the board, the settlement of a lawsuit that involved our former insurance company, a court of appeals case that involves a former commissioner and employee records, the appeal of Judge Jones' decision, which resulted in the appointment of myself, Mr. Kalani, and Mr. Soa to the board. And the final issue was the election challenge by former Commissioner Mitchell regarding our election in May. And we adjourned at 1:29 p.m. Item number 4, establishing fiscal year 2014 CRW goals for the general manager. Is there a motion?
Second.
Discussion? Questions? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
No.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 5, Resolution 05-2014, the second reading, amending board policies, Section 3, Budget and Finance. Do we have a motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or discussion from the board? Mr. Moore, would you read the second reading by title only, please?
Yes, but before I do, Commissioner,
Yes.
there is one correction in 3.5 that should be noted, and that is in section 3.5F3, when this issue was brought before the board, there was a request of the board, and the board directed me to make a change. And I noted that it's not necessarily reflected in your packet. I do think there is a corrected copy now. But under 3, it says, for real property or property interest estimated by the general manager to have a fair market value of more than $150,000, the general manager shall obtain, the way it reads now is an appraisal and it should read, shall obtain 2 appraisals. And so we've made that correction. I just wanted to note that before I read it by title.
And the maker of the motion accepts the change in the language?
Yes, I
As
do.
does the second? Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
And the chair votes aye.
Chair,
Yes.
I did not read it by title.
Would you
so
read the
I-
title, please, before we move on? Thank you.
Before you move on. Clackamas River Water, Resolution 05-2014, a resolution amending Clackamas River Water Board Policy, Budget and Finance, Section 3, whereas the regular meeting was called by the Board of Commissioners, Clackamas River Water District on September 12, 2013, and whereas pursuant to the provisions of ORS 192.640, notice of said regular meeting and the purpose thereof was given by email, Clackamas River Water website, and/or telephone to members of the governing body, the news meter, which has requested notice, and the general public in accordance with the requirements of said statute. And whereas after consideration, the Board of Commissioners finds that 1, the Clackamas River Water Board Policy, 3, Budget and Finance establishing government for the board.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Item number 6, Resolution 06-2014, first reading by title only, amending board policies, Section 4, business operations. It's been moved and seconded.
Seconded.
Let that be noted that it's been moved and seconded to move it forward to a second reading at our next regular meeting. We're not adopting it at this time. Is there any questions or discussion regarding this particular proposal? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
And the chair votes aye. Item number 7, Resolution 07, 07-2014, first reading by title only, amending board policy section 5 through 8. There's a motion to move it forward to the next agenda meeting.
So moved.
And seconded.
Discussion this evening. Any corrections or changes to the proposed policy? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
And the chair votes aye. The motion carries. We have removed item 8 from the agenda this evening, so we'll move to item number 9, Resolution 09-2014, emergency repair for Mather Road Reservoir drain. And the chair has some corrections on that. However, what I will do is defer to our president and let him take it up from there. Yeah. Mr. Chairman, we're on item number 9. Almost done.
Go ahead.
Take care of business.
Go ahead with item number 9.
And we do have some corrections in the draft motion and in the body of the report from our staff. So I will read a draft motion with the corrections and also include the corrections in the body. The draft motion is being changed to, I move that the board approves resolution 09-2014 to declare CIP 135151 Mather Reservoir Site Drain Repair as an emergency project and to affirm the general manager's approval of a contract for construction services to repair the drain line. And then the corrections under the analysis. the first paragraph of the analysis, remove the last sentence. The board was polled by the general manager. And in the second paragraph, remove the language, second line, which ratifies the board's decision. And the reason that that is being changed is that the board was not polled. The general manager informed the board president and also informed us of the emergency, and it's well within his authority to exercise a contract in an emergency situation, and it's our job tonight to affirm his action. So I have made the motion with those corrections.
Second. We have a second. Any discussion?
What was the total change that?
I'll go over it. In the draft motion, remove the language which ratifies the board's decision, and the word authorized is changed to affirm. And then in the analysis section, first paragraph, remove the last sentence in its entirety. And in the second paragraph, after the 2014, remove which ratifies the board's decision. Okay?
Good, good.
Staff have a comment?
Adam Bjornstead, engineering manager, commissioners. As is written in the write-up and the attached exhibit B, the project need for this project, this emergency project, is outlined, and I wasn't going to go into great detail on that unless there were specific questions as to the project scope.
Have you started yet?
We've done some initial preliminary work to quantify this project by survey. The contractor we identified did some initial videoing of the drain line to confirm the length of the damage, and we'll be proceeding forward with the design and then his work toward it.
You have an estimated cost here?
Yeah, it's $50,000 to $60,000.
Okay, but not closer than that?
No.
Okay.
We have a motion made and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Good.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Opposed?
No.
Item number 10. Engineering report. Bob.
Adam Bjornstead and Bob George, engineering. Again, we just intended this item as an engineering, primarily a capital improvement project update. The projects that are listed there that we wish to update the board on status of in the agenda write-up. Those projects include the Sunrise, or let me start from the top, the emergency generator, emergency power electrical upgrades project, the Harbor Bridge projects, both phase 1, the North Intertie, and phase 2, which is the actual bridge water main. The Sunrise JTA project, and that's the extent of it. So Mr. George and I are, again, up here at your disposal to answer any specific questions on the project scope, schedule, or status.
Question. How long before the generator's done? Been lingering a long time.
It certainly
A
has.
very long time.
And
It's
we
not
are
good to not have one, so.
We are a little bit behind schedule. We've had some last late design review and completion of that with the contractor. As you're aware, they are a construction manager, general contractor at contract, which affords us quite a bit of collaboration with them way back from the beginning of design up to today. Construction is underway. They're doing some preliminary electrical upgrades in the plant, replacing panels, some minor work while they're waiting for equipment to arrive. The major equipment that is long lead type items, the switch gear for the generator, which is all being shipped from the Caterpillar plant in Georgia. Tentative dates for that equipment, that last check was late this month, delivery on site. They're doing site work to prepare for that, including relocating some conduits existing out there at the plant and preparing the site, including the slab for the generator. And as you know, we already have a generator in storage on site, and that will be installed as soon as
So, meaning that they run the whole project. Looking at their schedule,
correct.
when is commissioning and testing to begin?
Commissioning and testing, we're looking at early January, of 2014. Our initial schedule was end of December, so as I said, we're a little bit behind, but still foreseeing, definitely foreseeing completion within mid-fiscal year of this current fiscal year.
Jackson?
Adam, and the, on your handout here, under status, the thing that concerns me is your last sentence there. Initial electrical work on WTP includes minor panel upgrades and planning for a major electrical site. Have we been successful in eliminating the electrical hazard to the employees on the switches switching off and on by themselves?
That will be addressed as part of the major work, but because that's related to some critical, basically the main electrical equipment upgrades, those have to be phased after, basically after the end of September because of high use periods.
So until that period, then our employees are not protected, and we still have the old switches in.
But old switches are still there.
Thank
The
you,
employees
Adam.
will continue to follow the lockout and tagout procedures and disconnect procedures that they currently have,
Good.
which do afford.
I worry about that every day until those things get changed out.
Yeah, my
Thank you very
concern.
much.
On the Carver Bridge, have we solved the conflict with the bridge construction manager?
Thank you, Mr. President. You're referring to the contractor's claim?
Yes.
Is that correct? I believe. On waterline materials, the county's contractor did submit a claim regarding the type of waterline piping that was required by the design. The county and the county's engineer communicated with CRW engineering staff, and we were all in agreement, and still are in agreement, that the contractor's claim has no basis. The county took a draft suggested response from CRW and prepared their own response from that, captured all the salient points, and forwarded that to the contractor. So the contractor is in receipt of that response, denying the claim in full, and they're waiting to hear back from the contractor.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
One brief question, Mr. Chairman. On page 2, under status, item 3, it says the county's bridge contractor submitted a claim in July for consideration of waterline materials. CRW and the county rejected the claim on the basis of compliance with project specifications and drawings. You mean on the basis of non-compliance, that he did not comply?
That is the...
Is that the intent of that statement?
Yeah, I can clarify that. The contractor basically stated that the project specifications and drawings were not clear on the type of pipe required, and that has been refuted. The specifications and drawings were quite clear, and that again was a statement supported by the county's engineer and CRW in our response.
Hence the rejection.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? We'll now move on to Carol, the financial report.
Good evening, Carol Dyke, CFO. This evening I have some financial reporting for you. We've got a couple of extra items that we don't see every month. We're going to start with reviewing the investment policy and our bank signatory policy update. There are no changes in either of these policies, but it's prudent to bring this before the board on an annual basis, just so everybody knows what's going on. So the investment policy, the resolution from last year, remains in effect. We're currently getting 0.54% on the local government investment pool. But when I look at what our neighbors are getting, we're actually doing quite well. California's getting 0.271 and Washington only gets 0.12 on their local government investment pool, so we're doing okay. The one change that the state made is every year they index the maximum allowable funds that can be placed by any individual entity in the LGIP, and we currently are significantly below that, so that's not really an issue for us, but I did want to point out that that dollar amount has been increased. They update it by the CPI every year.
I have a question. Who sets that rate?
The Oregon Treasury Department.
Okay, Treasury.
And moving on to bank signatory policy, again, there are no changes in the policy that exists. So resolution 012013 from last year remains in effect. We are continuing our banking relationship with U.S. Bank, and currently the check signers on record at the bank are Lee Moore and myself and Rob Cummings as a third person. We do use facsimile signatures, so when we print the checks, we have a secure module that we plug into the computer so that the checks come out with the signatures on them. But should we ever have to do a manual check, we have the ability to have it physically signed by the general manager and myself. So now I'd like to move on to the annual debt covenant reporting. This is where I report to the board whether or not we met our covenants with our bondholders. And the requirement is that I report to the board within 90 days of the fiscal year, so that would be by September 28th. So we're a little ahead of the deadline. There's really not a requirement that I present this to the board in a public meeting, but I think it's a good idea for the board and the public to know where we stand. We do have requirements. We have a ratio of 1.25 of our net revenues that are at least equal to 125% of our annual debt service payment, which would be our principal and interest for the year. We also have a second requirement that we must be at least equal to the net revenues, and that's taking the system development charges out. So if we look at our numbers for this year, and again, these are unaudited numbers, but at this point, they're not likely to change very much. We are currently meeting on the 125%. We are at 286%. We held costs pretty steady, and we had significantly more revenue than we forecast. And part of that was the rate increase, but a significant part was additional consumption. I believe my records of what we billed was an additional close to 125,000 CCFs more than the prior year. If you look without the SDCs, again, our SDC monies, they're starting to come in a little bit better this year, but they have been relatively slow for the last few years. But the second test is being met at 265%. So we are in good shape on our debt covenants. The 1.25 and the 1 ratio is a bare minimum. The bondholders really, really like to see those numbers better, so this is going to look very good to the rating agencies and the bondholders. Okay, now I'm ready to, unless there's any questions on those parts, I'm ready to move into my regular monthly reports. So our accounts receivable aging, this is the balance due to us by our customers. As of August 31st was 2.1 million, significantly higher than the June billing. We had quite a lot of warm weather over the summer and very dry, so we did have significant increase in consumption. In fact, we're about 10% over the consumption that we had in this billing cycle last year. It's we have been seeing consumption go down, 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 and all of a sudden it's coming back up, and it is having a significant impact on the revenues. We'll see what happens when we get to the winter months, and because we do know that there has been a lot of conservation, and we expect that to continue. So the winter month should be a little bit more in line with what we expect. And I did look this morning, the outstanding aging this morning was about 1.2 million. So we've already collected a significant amount, even though the first due date really is Monday for bill payments. So we have received quite a lot of payments from our customers. Now looking at the August 31st cash and investment position, we have 8.1 million total. This is the combined checking account and the local government investment pool. As we collect the August bills, that number will come up. Because we bill every other month, we have kind of a zigzag kind of cash balance. So now I'd like to go back to look at June again. We've done some more adjusting entries. We're getting closer to being ready for the auditors to be in-house in October. And one of the things that we do every year is we do an estimate of unbilled water. And typically we have time, because of when the auditors arrive, we have time to actually look at the actual August bill. So our estimate is pretty close. So we take the August bill, divide that by the total number of days in the bill, and then multiply that by the number of days between the last meter read and the end of June. And that's how we get that number. So we did accrue some additional water revenue for the year. And when we get to the expenditures, again, we've done some additional accruals, and you can see that we did hold the line on our expenditures for 2013. Our total expenditures were lower than 2011 and 2012, so we were doing a good job keeping a handle on our expenses. This slide shows the comparison year over year, and you can see that our revenue was significantly up. A portion of that is water, based on the higher consumption and the rate increase, but we also had some additional revenue due to the BCT settlement and some other miscellaneous revenue that came in. We had some grant revenue from last year as well. And our personnel services, materials and services compared quite nicely with the prior year. So just for fun, we're throwing in July. July is kind of an odd month for us because we do have accruals. Much of what we process in July belongs back in June, and we've moved it there. So, but just to get us started, I didn't show a graph because the July activity, there's just not that much. But here's where we are in comparison with July activity a year ago.
I have one question. So how do you, being that we bill every other month, how do you split it for the budget cycle? How do you just divide the bills in half?
Well, we do billing June 30th, but the meters are read around the middle of June.
Yeah.
So that's what I was talking about. We added some additional revenue to
Oh,
June.
okay.
We calculate out of the 60-day billing cycle, we had 15 days
I see, okay.
that should have been.
Okay.
So we do an accrual for that to account for that.
I was just wondering how that,
Yeah.
how that worked, okay.
And that's all I have for this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Any more questions? Seeing none, we'll go on to the manager's report.
Mr. President, and members of the board, my report is, for this month, it's relatively short. You've already heard a discussion about the Mather Reservoir. There is a correction there that I made with respect to about halfway down after the word CRW. I had in there, we have determined that if it is not repaired, then it is okay. And really what the intent was, as you see in your purple pages there, is that we needed to make the repair regardless of who is responsible. And so rather than go around and try to determine whose fault it was, we needed, because we wanted to get ahead of the weather, we went ahead and made the repair sooner rather than later. So it should read that way, or should reflect that. We continue under number 2 to look at the water treatment plant. We started this discussion, as you may have recalled, when we were working on the generator project and trying to determine what kind of security we would put into the facility for the generator project. And then at the same time, we then were approached by the county, as you know, and they offered to put in fiber, and they're in the process right now of putting the fiber in. I think I don't know if they got finished today or not, but we know they're in this week in this building, making a connection. They're going to do an overhead run from across the street to the building, which would then connect us to the treatment plant into our operations
They
facility.
were looking at it tonight.
Huh?
We're stringing it tonight.
Are they showing it tonight?
They were stringing it
Yeah,
tonight.
they were still doing it tonight.
Well, I talked to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So but as a result of that, that gives us expanded capability. And because we are a FEMA agency, that we really needed to be looking at the entire facility. And so we've expanded our efforts to do an analysis of the entire site and not just the generator, but the entire facility out there. So as we make a little bit more progress there and we get to a point of deciding how we're gonna do that, I'll be coming back to the board and kind of updating you on what we propose to do.
Hey, we have a question. In that, I'd be interested in knowing if we're gonna do a loop back so that we're not single-ended.
You know, we have redundancy is what we're planning into the entire.
Okay, so
facility.
there's
Yeah.
so it's looped, not single-ended.
Right.
Okay.
That's not true.
Well, I didn't think so. That's,
No, it's single from their system to this office to the water treatment plant. If not tied in at the water treatment plant to another source. Is that what you mean?
no, I'm talking about the communication so that if we have a fiber cut, will we still be able to communicate between here and there?
It will not, no.
Okay.
It is single.
Yes, single-ended.
Question, don't we have other methods of communication between here and there at this time?
Well, we do, but it won't have the same capability.
But we would still be able to communicate if necessary in
Yes.
an emergency situation, for
Right.
instance. If the cable got, if it got cut by telephone, by radio, by something, you'd be able to communicate
As we do now.
as you do now. So it would be not as good as the fiber optic, but it would still be something that would allow you to communicate if necessary.
It would, when we say not as good, in terms of performance,
Yeah.
it won't be as good. It will be a little bit slower communication than what we have now.
But
And we
it-
won't have the bandwidth that we have now.
Here's what I'm driving at is, we're putting this in addition to what we already have. We're not removing what we already have. So we'll still have the old way of communicating if we need it.
That's what we're still discussing now. But all of our efforts up to this point has been working with the county, trying to accommodate their need to get the fiber in. We're still evaluating how we want the entire system to operate. So that's still an open issue.
Just one of the things that bothers me, with this whole county thing, everything is single-ended. And as more and more government entities get on this system, we're having all our eggs in one basket. And it bothers me that we are setting ourselves up for a serious problem. We have an ice event and everything's laying on the ground, we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the things that, I'm not defending what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that
Yeah.
I think we need to keep looking at this and see.
This was a kind of out of schedule installation. For example, the county has received federal money to wire rural America. The county had not even included us, Fish and Wildlife, and a lot of other entities into their plans. They found out about us happenstance. And so what we had was an opportunity to get the portion done that we're getting done now for the $10,000. It may be that as we go through and look at this further, and come into the next budget cycle, we may want to double back and recommend to the board that we fund additional work. But this was a single effort.
Well, it's a good step, don't get me wrong there, I just worry that we are using a single technology with no redundancy, and should we choose to eliminate our T1 line before we have some other method to provide that redundancy, typically wireless, you know, it's just.
We haven't destroyed anything at this point.
No, right. To answer your question, the T1's still there.
Yeah. Since we're moving into strategic planning, at our next work session, that'll be our first start on that. Maybe this could be part of that overall thought process? Would that be appropriate?
Security is, yes.
In general?
Yeah, in general, it's really a good discussion item anyway.
So we're going to keep that on our work session agenda so that we can speak to it as time goes on. I think that might be.
Agreed. The next item is the ORS 190 between Sunrise Water Authority and CRW. The group of 8 met on August 21st, and as you know, there was a special meeting held as well with both boards. And actually 2 days were identified for public meetings, one in October and the other in November. And then going to the next item, at the same time, I have met with myself and Wade Hathorn have met with Oregon City and South Fork Water. They had their attorneys present for both South Fork Water and Oregon City. There has been a subsequent meeting between the attorneys for Oregon City, South Fork Water, Sunrise Water Authority, and CRW. What we've gotten is a request from Oregon City that we delay our 190 activity until such time as the hydraulic study is done between CRW and Oregon City. Our attorney has told them that that was not our intent. We just got an email where their attorney said that we could expect an additional letter from Oregon City, basically stating again their position, if you will, as to, although they weren't aware, the attorneys, that we were engaged in a joint engineering study. And so it'll be interesting, I think, to see what's going to come out of that, and we'll keep you posted in terms of what their next course of action is going to be. We had a board, as you heard, we had a board work session, and the policies that were on the agenda for tonight were proposed for updating, and the board has gone through one reading of those, and we'll have a second reading at the next meeting. The other thing that is happening as part of the strategic planning activity that the managers have met internally, and we're doing operational planning. We've had, 2 meetings now. Those meetings are moving very well, and we're essentially taking off from where we left off before. And when we have our work session on Monday, we will advise the board or review with the board what we've done up to this point, and basically get your feedback and input at that meeting. And then the last item that I have is that I believe, as Commissioner Humberstone has indicated, there were oral arguments today in the Clackamas County Circuit Court. The court did rule that CRW and Clackamas County had standing, and there will be a hearing scheduled for November 12th, 2013. And that's the end of my report.
Before we go to another topic, I apologize, I'm a little bit behind time, but on the Mesa Road project, are there any safeguards that can be put in where that won't happen again?
The existing pipe, the drain line, 12-inch, is, I'm trying to remember when Mather Road Reservoir was built, I think 1972, 71, somewhere in that. It's concrete pipe without reinforcing. We're going to be replacing it with ductile iron pipe.
Okay.
So that piece that is damaged, we will figure out how much, and then we'll be talking to the property owners and what their plans are for that small piece of property. It's right along the road, comes across a little corner. She wants us across any easement on private property. It depends on what they plan on doing. If they just leave the retaining wall that we have to take out, big rock retaining wall, and we put it back, we'll be using ductile iron pipe.
Okay.
And you can basically build buildings on top of it, so the boulders won't damage it in the future.
Good.
What happens out in the road, usually it's a little easier to get to because it's just pavement or soil, but this time we have a situation that the spill damaged the pipe.
Okay.
So we'll
Thank you.
use material that's what's needed.
Any more questions? We'll have our final public comment period. Anyone in the public wish to testify? If not, we'll go on to commission business. Anything commission?
Well, I attended the SWA meeting, but my report doesn't have to be in here because I wasn't timely enough in getting it to the staff for the agenda. However, the interesting thing that came out of the meeting was they had spent 2 months doing a customer survey to see how their customers viewed their performance, and they got over 1,100 responses, which was a pretty good response from what I can gather. And overall, they were pretty well received by their own customers. So I thought that was interesting that an organization that we're trying to develop a relationship with has a good relationship with their own customers, and I think that bodes well for our future. That was the most significant thing from that meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Be sure and fill out your report for staff, which I haven't done yet. We'll do that after the meeting. Any more business? And that's, we are adjourned.